We want people who also suffer from mental illness, who may be having an episode, to be protected as well, because look what happens whenever they're encountered by police. And here's the truth. Police do not and are not trained to encounter people with mental illness, as well as they don't care about people who are mentally ill. I'm just going to say it. They don't care.
All we asking for is Jaybe, and you're 100% correct, guys. Jaybe has nailed it there. What we are asking for is a coherent public health system. Why is it in the United States we spend so much on our police budgets, but you ask Americans and polls and they constantly tell you that they feel unsafe? How many billions of dollars do we need to spend on our police officers for Americans in order for them to feel safe? There's no number. There's no mystical number. You know why? Because the system is inherently flawed.
So one of the things that is very apparent is that you can look at pretty much every single president, and there's some sort of civil rights violation going on with one of them. It may be one group or another. It may be all groups at the same time. It may happen, sprinkle, here and there. But one thing is for sure, if you have an American president, you're going to have a civil rights violation somewhere, because that's just the way the system is built. But one of the things that is whose civil rights is being violated are people that we typically overlook in this country. It's sad that we overlook them, but we do. Two people that we overlook. We have the people who are incarcerated, recognize it or not, they also have civil rights, and people who are mentally ill. They also have civil rights in this country, but a lot of times they go overlooked. And many of us may have family members that are either incarcerated or are mentally ill, or both. And so we need to talk about how they're being treated, because people don't talk about them. And so let's get into this story. This was a story that came out about a week ago. This was out of ProPublica. Of course, ProPublica does a lot of great investigative reporting out there. And this article was actually written by a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. And so this one says, Trump administration halted lawsuits targeting civil rights abuses of prisoners and mentally ill people. So let's get into this article. Shout out to Corey G. Johnson, who actually wrote this article. And it said the Trump administration has halted litigation aimed at stopping civil rights abuses of prisoners in Louisiana and mentally ill people living in South Carolina group homes. The Biden administration filed lawsuits against those two states in December after the Department of Justice investigations concluded that they had failed to fix violations despite years of warnings. Louisiana's prison system has kept thousands of incarcerated people behind bars for weeks, months, or sometimes more than a year after they were supposed to be released. And the DOJ accused South Carolina of institutionalizing thousands of people diagnosed with serious mental illnesses, sometimes for decades, rather than providing services that would allow them to live in less restrictive settings as their right under federal law. So this is a story that is under the radar. A lot of people aren't really talking about, but this needs to be talked about, because a lot of people who are victims of this system tend to be the people who are incarcerated, people who suffer from mental illnesses. And this is Harmeet K. Dillon, that is the Assistant Attorney General under Donald Trump. Says Dillon announced that she was moving to dismiss efforts to impose consent decrees on the Louisville, Kentucky, and Minneapolis police departments. She complained that consent decrees turn local control of policing over unelected and unaccountable bureaucrats. And a lot of times people wonder what a dissent decree is. Well, basically, it is if an institution is not operating in the way that it should, then there is typically a neutral arbiter or board that's appointed to be able to make sure that they're doing what is correct according to the law as well as for the people. And so they are basically like the referee. They're the check and balance over these institutions. And people like Miss Dillon, she says, Assistant Attorney General Dillon says she complained that they turn the control of local policing over to unelected and unaccountable bureaucrats. But my question isn't Miss Dillon an unelected and unaccountable bureaucrat? I mean, she's definitely unelected because she was appointed by Donald Trump. So therefore, and that's her. I want to continue on this. It says, I lost everything. It says, in the case of Louisiana, the Justice Department issued a scathing report in January 2023 about the state confining prisoners beyond their sentences. The problems dated back more than a decade remain widespread. Between January and April of 2022 alone, more than a quarter of everyone released from prison custody was held past their release dates. Of those, 24% spent an additional 90 days or more behind bars. So now we have people who are supposed to be released and they're just not releasing them. They're either slow to do it or they're neglectful to release people when they're supposed to be released once they serve their time.
Can you imagine can you imagine what Americans would say if this was confirmed reports about what happened in Russia or in China, for example? The dystopian state that often paint at our enemies is what we are seeing happen in the United States. Like, this is crazy. I'm now learning this for the first time, but please continue, Jaybe.
Sure. So it says among those held longer than they should have been was Robert Parker. He was a DJ in New Orleans where he played R&B and hip hop music at weddings and private parties. It says he was arrested. He was 55 and he's arrested in late 2016 after violating a restraining order bought by a former girlfriend. He was supposed to be released in October 2017, but a prison staffer mistakenly classified him as a sex offender. That meant he was required to provide prison authorities with 2 addresses where he could stay that complied with sex offender registry rules. It says prison documents showed Parker repeatedly told authorities that he wasn't a sex offender and pleaded to speak to the warden to clear up the mistake. But nobody acted until the deputy public defender contacted state officials months later to complain. By the time he walked out, Parker had spent 337 extra days behind bars. During that period, he said his car was repossessed, his mother died, and his reputation was ruined. So let's talk about how this is also a huge working class issue. Because it's not just a moral issue. This is a working class issue. Because let's say he was supposed to be in there for 30 days, right? And so you already paid your car note, right? And then you're in the jail for 30 days and then you miss the payment. So then your car gets repoed. So now when it comes to actually getting to and from work, that makes it a whole lot more harder, right? He said his mom died. So he missed, being able to mourn his own mother properly, which is horrible. And then it says his reputation was ruined because once you're listed in the sex offender registry and you didn't do anything like that, then your reputation is permanently tarnished because people can just look that up online and see who you are. And next thing you know, they think that that's what you are, when in reality, that's not what he was at all.
So one thing I just want to add is that the goal is to keep people in the system. The goal is not actually to rehabilitate them. So even though they made a mistake with this individual, it doesn't seem like they were trying to go out of their way to correct it either. Like that's the thing about the system. Like once you're in it, like it is very hard to get out, but that's the goal. The goal is to keep you in. And there's a number of reasons. Number one, you got to remember we have the private prison system, right? So it's a profit to be made in locking people up. And then 2, what do prisoners do? They also use them for free labor.
Mhm.
So this is why, you know, a lot of times we say, like, don't just look at the issue at hand, look at the bigger picture. And if you always connect it back to the money, then you'll understand why I think some of these things are happening. Because, like I said, like, our criminal justice system here in the United States does not operate in such a way that is designed to really rehabilitate the individual. And if you compare it to other, like, justice systems in other countries where the prisoners have more freedom and they actually have like therapy and they have real rehabilitation sessions, they are preparing them and trying to help them to be a productive member of society. Not here in the United States. There's too much money to be made in the private prison, complex. There's too much for it, too much, and that's a big part of that problem, and that's a wrong that Joe Biden could have fixed, right? Like, he was one of the people that, you know, co-wrote the crime bills along with Bill Clinton. That could have been his response to that when he was president is, you know what, we are going to ban, you know, private prisons, but he's not going to do that because they're all in on it. The politicians support the prison industrial complex and they know there's a lot of money to be made there. It's
Mhm.
crazy.
I wanted to say, this is nothing new. You know, what conservatives like to say, oh, I've never seen so many autistic people. I've never seen so many people with so many disabilities. That because we used to lock them up and kill them. Shock therapy. Like, this is nothing new. And when Donald Trump said, make America great again, these are one of the things that he was talking about. See, capitalism, the problem with capitalism isn't they don't want to solve the problem. They want to, mask it. They want to spray perfume on a pile of shit and call it candy. But you can see this with the homelessness. Instead of, providing homes and resources for the homeless, they do sweeps and get them out of certain areas, depending on if they shooting a movie or celebrity or some type of politician is coming by. We see this with a lot of our marginalized communities. Capitalism don't want to get rid of the problem. They just want to get rid of you. You know what I'm saying? Get rid of you out of their sight. So this is nothing new. I think they just bringing it back because, back in the 80s and the 70s, we really didn't see too much of a homeless problem. It's because we locked them up for being, crazy, for not being a part of this society, call them brainwasher, whatever the hell you want to, whatever you want to say. But yes, they get rid of these people, and this is nothing new, and it will continue to go on, whether it be a Republican in office or a Democrat in office, because like Sabby said, this is something that Joe Biden had the power to stop, but he didn't stop it because they all agree with this type of punishment for people who cannot, contribute to what they call society. And if you have mental disabilities, if you have physical disabilities, if you just fall off, everybody falls from grace once in a while. They will be done with you. And I have been locked up in mental homes multiple times, and they kept trying to push pills on me, kept trying to push all this stuff on me that they promise is going to work. But I know in my mind, I need something that's way deeper than that. And they know it also, but I'm on the computer. But no, this is nothing new. It's going to continue to happen. And I know people like, well, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I always tell people, we have to give these people the same energy that they are giving us. We have to remember that these are not only just people that's on the streets. It can be you one day. It's your loved ones. I know lots of people out there with disabilities, mental disabilities, and whatever it may be. But we got to give them the same treatment, the same energy that they are giving us. It's not that oh well, life is hopeless. Life has a lot of hope, but they have pushed you to the point that you feel like you can do nothing to combat this. But I'm telling you right now, we have more than enough power to combat this. Look what happened with Luigi when that CEO got shot by allegedly, by Luigi. They got sued by BlackRock for giving out too much care. And this just goes to show, once the people put their foot down and we show who's in control, and we show we are willing to take it there, they're going to take a step back. The working class, they have always been afraid of the working class. This is why they put so much money behind anti-unions, union parties, and put so much money behind the police. They put so much money towards your death because they are afraid of you living. But this is nothing new. I say it's going to continue to happen for about 20 more years if we don't put our foot down and say enough is enough. We need real resources to help these people in the time of their need.
And I was going to say, to Rome's point, when he said that they used to put them away or like lock them up and you didn't hear about it, a good example of that is Rose Kennedy. I don't know if a lot of people know about this, but one of the Kennedy family members, Rose Kennedy, was given a lobotomy by her father in her early 20s because she had what was believed to be some type of disability, or they said her behavior was irritable, that she was difficult to deal with, which today we probably would have just called that like, okay, she has mental health, she's having a mental health issue. They gave her a lobotomy. And that's the thing, like that's what they used to do to people back then. They were like, okay, this person will not deal with you, so we're just going to put you down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's continue on. And they spoke to him after he was recovering from a stroke, and he said that he had lost everything. He said he's ready to get away from Louisiana. Now, on to the incarceration aspect of this. It says Louisiana's detention system is complex. Unlike other jurisdictions where the convicted are housed in state facilities, inmates in Louisiana can be held in local jails overseen by sheriffs. A major contributor to the so-called over-detentions was poor communication among Louisiana's court clerks, sheriff's offices, and the state departments of corrections. According to interviews with attorneys, depositions of state officials, and reports from state federal reviews of the prison system, it says recently the agency shared prisoner sentencing information by shuttling stacks of paperwork by van or truck from the court to the sheriff's office for the parish holding the prisoner, then to corrections officials. The document transfers, which often crisscross the state, typically happen only once a week. When the records finally arrive, it could take a staff a month or longer to enter the data into computers, creating more delays. In addition, staff made data errors when calculating release dates. So, we literally have AI now that could take care of all this. And we literally could just, here's my question. Why isn't this court system as sophisticated when it comes to these things as we have in medical billing and coding?
Because they don't want it to work smoothly.
Well, that's definitely a good answer.
They really don't. They don't want it to work smoothly because, again, like the goal is to keep them there for as long as possible so you can continue to profit off of their labor.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely true. It says the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, they sued the Department of Corrections in Louisiana. And so this is how bad it's gotten. And so they talk about how the Department of Justice also had recommended for them to not go after the officer that shot Breonna Taylor. And so this is an extremely hostile Department of Justice that is actually against people who are wronged by our institutions. It says William Most, an attorney who filed class action lawsuit on behalf of incarcerated people who have been detained past their release dates, noted as of late May 2024, 141 people who were released that month have been kept longer than they should have been, 120 of them for more than 30 days. And anybody who's been in prison or in jail knows that each day in addition to what you're being sentenced to is too long. And this one talks about how people who are being trapped into group homes in South Carolina talks about how people who are diagnosed as severely mentally ill, says the state places them in group homes and fails to provide adequate care and overly restrictive And there's a part that I really want to share with you guys as well, because this is really ADA violations to the extreme here. It says TISOT, who has inspected hundreds of adult facilities, said they are often roach infested, soaked in urine, lacking in adequate medicine, and staffed by untrained employees. Her description mirrors the findings of several state and independent investigations. In some group homes, patients weren't allowed to leave or freely move around. Subsequently, their mental health would deteriorate. Also, some of these people who are in these group homes, they get sexually assaulted too. And a lot of people don't talk about it. And this is how bad it is. And yet, the Trump administration, and we're not going to let the Biden administration off the hook, because he could have went even further. But a lot of times the Democrats go just far enough so that the Republicans can actually renege things when a new administration comes in. And so this is part and parcel of what they do when it comes to civil rights, right? And so I'm going to link the article in the chat for you guys, because if you guys want to give it a good read. But this is part of the system. You do not have civil rights unless you have money, unless you are part of the parasitic system, meaning you're a parasite within the system. That's when you have rights. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness really has an asterisk behind it. And it is really for the owners of the means of production, which you and I are not. And this is why it's so important for us to focus on building up ourselves as workers and focusing on justice for people who are marginalized, because people who are incarcerated, people in prisons are also marginalized. People who suffer mental illness are also marginalized. Whether they're physically disabled or mentally disabled or both, they're also marginalized. And I want to end with this, because I think it's really important how the carceral system actually harms mentally ill people the most. And so I want to share this, and people, because I really want people to know how much they are affected as well.
People with untreated serious mental illness are 16 times more likely to encounter law enforcement than other civilians. And people with mental illness are 4 times more likely to be killed by police. That's according to a 2015 report by the Treatment Advocacy Center. The report found that the problem comes from a lack of police training as well as a lack of treatment for people with serious mental illnesses, because in many cases, people who are suffering go undiagnosed or untreated until their behavior attracts the attention of police. Almost 8 million Americans suffer from a serious mental illness that distorts their thinking, like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. On any given day, half of those patients aren't taking medications or receiving other treatment for their mental health. The reasons vary, but are usually due to communication breakdown. People who suffer from paranoia often panic when confronted by police. People who hear voices might not understand a police officer's commands to stop, or to drop a weapon or put their hands up. Law enforcement officers usually aren't educated on specifics of mental illnesses and how to communicate with people who suffer from a disorder like schizophrenia. In October of 2016, someone in the Bronx reported a woman who was carrying scissors and behaving irrationally. When police arrived, they found 66-year-old Deborah Danner in her apartment holding a pair of scissors. An officer persuaded her to put down the potential weapon, but then she grabbed a baseball bat and swung it toward the officers. She was shot and killed at the scene. Danner was schizophrenic, and her story is like many others. But in some cases, the cause of death isn't from a lethal weapon. 29-year-old Washington resident Alex Dole died during a fight with 6 police officers in March of 2017. He had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia a decade earlier. Police were responding to a call from Alex's mother, who had reported an assault and wanted them to take Alex to a hospital. Details of exactly what happened in the altercation are unclear, but investigators say Alex was shocked with a taser, became unresponsive, and an hour of CPR couldn't revive him.
When we say defund the police, does that always mean that we just do not want people to be protected? No, we want people who also suffer from mental illness, who may be having an episode, to be protected as well. Because look what happens whenever they're encountered by police. And here's the truth: police do not and are not trained to encounter people with mental illness, as well as they don't care about people who are mentally ill. I'm just going to say it. They don't care.
All we asking for is Jaybe, and you're 100% correct, guys. Jaybe has nailed it there. What we are asking for is a coherent public health system. Why is it in the United States we spend so much on our police budgets, but you ask Americans in polls and they constantly tell you that they feel unsafe? How many billions of dollars do we need to spend on our police officers for Americans in order for them to feel safe? There's no number. There's no mystical number. You know why? Because the system is inherently flawed. The Supreme Court ruled multiple times that the police don't even have a legal right to defend you. They are not there to engage in preventive work to prevent crime. We don't have a system that is designed to put people in the right frame of mind that drives down crime rates. It's just a pure authoritarian police state solution. But go ahead, JB. I just wanted to add just a little bit 2 cents there, but please continue.
No, and you know, you're absolutely right. And I think this is why we need to look at public safety in a much different way. One where it's not a protector of property, but it's a protector of people. Even people who we may encounter that are having episodes like this, well, they also need to be protected. And the people who are going through these episodes, they also need to get home safely at night, not just police.
They now say, JB, people like Obama will say the number one job of police officers is to make sure they get home safe at night.
Yeah,
They're not doing their job, because the thing is, they sign up for it. Like, people didn't sign up for mental illness. I'm sorry. I'm getting mad because people didn't sign up for being mentally ill. We didn't sign up to be black, because this is what happens whenever they see us. Oh my God, there's a black person. Therefore, their skin is going to make me, is going to do something bad to me somehow. And it's crazy, because the thing is, it's like, no. You chose to go to that police academy. You chose to do that firearms training. You chose to put on that badge and wear that gun. So therefore, guess what? You get everything that comes with it.
I was going to say, oh, go ahead, JB, sorry. Oh, okay. I was just going to say that this is why I said I don't think police should get involved with mental health incidents. I don't think they should be there at all. Because to JB's point, they're not trained to deal with people that have mental health issues. They're just not. And then they show up and they panic, and they don't know, because they don't know how to handle it, or they don't know that so-and-so in apartment A, has schizophrenia or has like manic depression. They don't know that. And so they just automatically, to that point that JB made about, well, Obama says it's their job to make sure they get home safe. So they're just focusing on themselves.
And a lot of people,
in a number of those.
Absolutely, Sabby. And a lot of people miss the point as well. The police officers becoming involved in issues of mental illness is a power grab by the state. So what do the state do if they want to increase their power? If the police would need to justify their payroll, to justify their increase of their salaries, you take on more responsibilities. The more responsibility the state takes on, the more powerful the state inherently becomes. So when we take police officers away from mental health issues, that's a way of taking away their power, because that's decreasing their overall influence and apparatus. So do you guys understand, when they interject themselves into these matters, that's on purpose, to expand their authority and their power. These are things that libertarians used to understand. This is why I defunded the police. And this is why I said with Jake Shields, and this is why I say when I talk to right-wingers all the time, it is not a Marxist idea. It's an old-school libertarian idea. You guys realize that, right? There was old-school Americans who were distrustful of the state. And when they said they didn't want big government, they wasn't just talking about welfare programs. They despised the police. The original quote-unquote rednecks was labor organizers who despised the police, which is why they advocated for quote unquote libertarian ideology, which went to dismantle and shrink the power of the growing state. And there are so many right wingers who are unserious, who don't even understand where their ideas even come from. Many communists know their ideology more than they do. There are many people who make the argument that communism is more libertarian than what they portray themselves as. But that's a conversation for another day. Go ahead, JB.
Yeah. So what did you guys think about this story? I would like to get your thoughts. Please let us know in the comments. And if you guys have not already, please go ahead and do, the damn thing and like the stream. This helps us out very much. We're going to go into some of the chat. I'm going to be able to just do the super chats due to the sake of time because I am too long-winded. My apologies for that, but we'll get into that right now.
We love you, JB.
I am long-winded as hell. And so we're going to start off with thank you very much to Mark Pugsley says in honor of all four of you at once. Oh, very kind of you. Thank you so very much for that. And then thank you for this very generous super sticker, Blueser. Wow.
Giant W.
Yeah. Very generous of you.
Yo, man, I want to know who Blueser is. Like, I want to know.
He's a premium class trader. We love class traders.
Sabby, you just made a song pop in my head. Now I changed the lyrics, right? I want to know who Blueser is. I want you to show me. Let me shut up. I'm gonna make people's ears bleed by my singing.